Climate change basically impacts businesses in New Zealand. A very obvious one was earlier last year we had the cyclone, and obviously it impacts all of our orchards, all the agriculture stocks. So for example, we have Scales, who is impacted by the cyclone, and they weren't able to produce apples, and that impacted their P&L, which also flows through to our investment process and how it flows into our portfolios. So that's just one sector. And then you've got businesses where it's just pure office space, kind of like maybe Sky City, where they have office space and maybe they think about green buildings. They're building a convention centre at the moment, and they're also focusing a lot on their waste. So that's what they're focusing on because that's what they can focus on. And then you get companies like Meridian. So they're in the renewable energy space, and the weather events patterns obviously affect how much water they have in their dams, for example, or how much wind is going through the air. And depending on those patterns, it will depend on how much they generate in their electricity and how much they can sell. So all these factor into our decision-making process, our research process, and it flows into how we build our portfolios. So in looking at all these companies, we're looking at a lens of opportunities and risk. An example of a risk might be weather events, weather patterns, and how this affects the company itself. And you've also got transition risk, which is a regulation risk. So what's the government going to do to decarbonize the economy in the future, for example? And then you've got opportunities. So that's where your renewable space comes in, where your lithium batteries come in, for example, and the economies that feed off those things. So in building our portfolios, we incorporate the climate-related risks and opportunities the same way that we incorporate any risk and opportunities. We've been doing this way back, even before the climate-related disclosures came in. So we talk to management, we practice our stewardship, our engagement, and we ask them all sorts of questions around what they're doing to prepare for climate change, how it affects their business. That will affect, their balance sheet and their P&L. Overall, we find that companies in New Zealand are, we are the first to do this, to report on climate-related disclosures. So we are pretty good at, voluntary disclosure before this even. So we find that companies in New Zealand are doing a pretty good job overall. In our climate report, you will see a section about scenario analysis. All this is we pick 3 scenarios, a 1.5 degree, a 2 degree plus, and a 3 degrees. Now what that means is, for example, a 1.5 degree scenario is aligning our portfolios with a 1.5 degree pathway. And what that means is we take certain assumptions such as a very high carbon price, high transition risk, meaning governments will regulate more, forcing more and more businesses to either pay for high carbon price or decarbonize in a shorter time period. And we also take into account different trajectories such as consumer appetite for EVs will be going up quite a lot more than a 3 degree scenario, for example. So what we do there is we put a portfolio through these scenarios, through these assumptions, and come up with an output of what might happen to the portfolios if we went down that pathway. Now, it's important to remember that scenarios are just that. It's scenarios. It's not a forecast. It's not a what will happen to your portfolio in the future. It's just to help us, think about all these different inputs that come in for us to better manage your portfolios. Now, with the climate reporting law coming in and us having to disclose our climate report statements, you can probably expect a more formal approach in terms of how managers disclose their risk and opportunities. Here at Nikko, we've always done it. We've always in our research process, have considered climate risk and opportunities the same as we've considered all other types of risk and opportunities, such as liquidity risk, for example. So our fundamental process hasn't changed. It's just that we are reporting it on a more formal way now. And so this is just to help, you as a user, us as a manager, incorporate all that extra information into the construction of our portfolios.